I'm by far not the only woman in the industry who is doing this type of thing. There are women in the bra industry and all kinds of industries who are coming in and saying, look, our bras are designed by men, our shoes are designed by men, our
Yes.
clothing is designed by men, and men are not wearing it. They're also not subjected to the same criticism that we are. They're not experiencing the fabric, they're not experiencing the fit. How can we expect them to design better for us unless there's a woman in the room who's being taken seriously?
Introducing The Vixen Voice, a podcast for ambitious women entrepreneurs ready to move into their feminine essence, live their truth, and unlock their full potential. I'm your host, April Roberts, and each week I'll be interviewing inspiring women who decided to take a leap of faith to pursue their dream. Women who believe that they were born for something bigger. Hey there, just popping in quickly. It's April Roberts, and I wanted to thank you for being a loyal listener of the Vixen Voice. It means so much to me. And because of that, we're going to be popping in these little announcements because I want you to be the first to know what's going on at the Vixen Gathering. So if you haven't done so yet, click the link below and check out the Vixen Founders Collective. The members who are already in are raving, and we would love to have you join us in the ultimate business consulting, networking, and personal growth community for Gen X female founders. See you there. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of The Vixen Voice. Today we have with us Steffie Thompson, and we are going to be talking all things women's shoes. Yes, this might be my favorite episode. If you know me, you know that I have quite a collection, and you're going to find out today that Steffie is probably going to disrupt that for me. But Stephanie is a neuroscientist based in Houston, and here's the cool thing. She's gone from being a neuroscientist to a shoe scientist. She is the founder of Getaway Sticks, a shoe company, and a keynote speaker advocating for women to have beautiful yet comfortable attire. So, Steffie, welcome.
Thank you, April. Thanks so much for having me here. I'm delighted.
I love it. And I'm so excited about this. So I got introduced to Steffie through our mutual friend, Bex Wood. And she was like, you have to meet this woman. She's amazing. And she sells shoes. And I was like, say no more. An amazing woman and shoes, two of my favorite things. So when we hopped on, we had such a great conversation that I really wish we had just recorded it for an episode. So we're back here today to chat again. So welcome, Steffie.
Thank you again. Yes, I agree. I feel like a lot of conversations I have with powerful women, I just want to record it and stick it in my pocket for later.
I know, it's so amazing. So, Steffie, since it's your first time on the Vixen Voice, I always like to ask. Obviously, I feel the beauty of most of us women is that we're multifaceted, or all women, and you're definitely multifaceted, right? And so I'm curious, what is a pivotal story that stands out to you who made this amazing woman sitting before us today?
Thank you, April. I think, like many women, I have been through many phases in my life. Right now, I am in a particular phase of advocacy for women and our health. And a lot of that came about because, as a neuroscientist, in focusing on brains and how we perceive our world, this is a very male-dominated field and a STEM field. I loved it, really enjoyed it, and yet I found that the traditional attire for professional women, especially in a male-dominated field, was literally holding me back. Like my shoes were not allowing me to walk as fast, as far as my male colleagues. And not only that, but I was considering my attire and my shoes almost all the time, where my male colleagues didn't give it another thought after their shoes were put on in the morning. And it became something that I started really cogitating on. Why am I spending so much time thinking about, can I make it from this building to that building in this shoe? Did I buy the right shoe? Did I bring the right shoe? Do I have my bag of extra shoes? I need to swing by and get something from the pharmacy, but I need to find a pharmacy that has a drive-through because I can't possibly walk one more step in the shoes that I have. Those types of cognitive disruptions, I became obsessed with thinking about how many times I was disrupted in my day by this type of problem. And so, fast forward to now, I have a company that offers a solution, one of many solutions to this problem. And now I find myself becoming and growing into this person who is so much more really an advocate for women's cognitive health, physical health, mental health, etc., that it's kind of a new role for me, and I'm real excited to chat about it and to be a resource for other women and a place of conversation.
I love it. And, I interviewed a woman yesterday who focuses on the 8 worlds of wellness, let's just say, like breaking it
Okay.
down. And I think there's so many areas of wellness that we don't think about. And, I was just having this conversation with someone this morning, like, because we women are so go, go, go. I got a massage the other day, and when they touched a certain area, I was like, oh, why is that hurting? Does that hurt in my normal life, or is it just hurting here? Because we like literally just ignore it. We've gotten so good at ignoring everything and just
Hmm.
moving forward, but it's not the smartest thing. So I love that you brought up cognitive health, because how few women think about this, number one. And number two, I advocate, I've never used that term before, so thank you for the new term, but I really advocate this a lot in my coaching and consulting, because a lot of what we talk about is how do we become focused? How do we become obsessed with our goals? How do we cut out distractions? I help them set better boundaries with family, time management, etc. And so, I'd love to get into this cognitive health. And one thing you mentioned to me before, last time we talked, you were giving a keynote presentation on shoes, wardrobe, and cognitive distraction. So that's another new term. Can you share with us what that means?
Sure, sure. Cognitive distraction is really anything that takes you away or pulls you away from a single train of thought. And women are particularly in tune with this particular issue. If you live in a busy family, if you have children, they're constant distraction. Being in a noisy environment can be a distraction. Being in an absolutely silent environment can be a distraction. It's very different for different people. Different brains respond to different things as a distraction. The thing that I am particularly in tune to right now is how much of our wardrobe, including our shoes, contributes to that cognitive distraction factor. And it's not simply just, I mean, the most basic example would be something like, like a tag in the back of your dress or something that's always itching at you. It's not painful, but it really grinds your gears over the day, right? But
Yeah.
it can be much more sophisticated than that. For example, maybe the zipper in your jeans actually only opens smoothly 70% of the time, and that other 30% you have to fight with it. And so that the next time you go to the restroom, you may or may not have to fight this battle. That uncertainty plus the knowledge of what you might have to do is itself a cognitive distraction. And so, it's almost like I like to think about things in extreme when I'm in a gray area of like, is this really a distraction or am I just being too sensitive? I think about, major extremes, one of which is I grew up watching Star Trek Enterprise, which if you haven't seen it, it's what you'd imagine from any like space show where the I don't know, the people are wearing a unitard, right? A
Right.
single piece of clothing, and the color designates what they get to do that day. And I thought, oh my God, how simple. Like how simple. There are no adjustments, there are no fasteners, there is no shirt sliding off the side of your shoulder that you have to readjust. There is no nothing. Your 100% focus is what your job is on that ship on that day. And I know that's a super nerdy reference, and so I apologize, but that's
I
also a
love it.
very massive extreme. And a lot of us women aren't interested in that either, right? I don't want to wear a unitard every day, and I'm not advocating for that. However, it does help us think sometimes if you go from that to what I do wear every day with buttons and threads and tags and shoes and buckles and heights and, all the things that actually can be quite a bit.
Yeah, I agree. And I actually talk about this. In fact, I gave a keynote speech in 2017 to a group of female financial advisors. And I talked about, Zuckerberg has his wardrobe. It's a gray t shirt and jeans every day. So he doesn't have to think about what to wear. And he's not the only one. And I can't remember right now. Steve Jobs basically had a wardrobe. And
Yep.
so, to your point, most women are not interested in getting that basic. But I would advocate, for ease in the morning, what's your uniform? Because for me in the financial business, it was jewel tone dresses with certain jewelry, with certain shoes, right? And I actually did that for ease, or that's how I decided I wanted to look. And then I realized, wow, this is easy. When I don't wear a dress and I have to put an outfit together, it's a lot more complicated for my brain in the morning. I'm frustrated, number one. And number two, there was a byproduct that I branded myself in a male dominated industry by dressing that way. And in fact, my whole team, which were all women, started dressing the same way too. So we could be at a conference with thousands of people and they knew April and the Roberts Wealth team, right? And so there are multiple layers to this, but I'm a fan of this. I'd love to hear maybe some tips you have, and then I definitely want to get into your story about shoes because yeah, I am a connoisseur of shoes. I won't lie, and it's very sad because I'm 48 now and I cannot wear my heels for very long because I finally got to that point where the balls of my feet, like I'll be like, my feet hit the wall. It's time for me to go home. Like we hit that moment if we're not prepared, right?
I've totally been there, April. You are not alone, and I'm happy to dig into the shoe space. I think I love your story because what you're describing is a capsule collection of elements in a wardrobe, and you have 9 dresses, jewel tones, maybe 9 jackets that go over the dress, maybe 9 shoes, and you can mix and match and add scarves, etc. And that gives you just enough kind of wardrobe freedom to make choices about, hey, this is how I feel today and this is how I want to dress, to either counteract that feeling or to augment that feeling, right? And that idea of a capsule collection is increasingly popular, and it is all over the place in female leadership higher up. I mean, all female politicians, they have a capsule collection, but even not nearly as famous, CEOs of big oil and gas companies, they have a routine that they stick with. You'll notice they wear the same jewelry, they have the same hairstyle, they have the same set of things. So I think that's a really wonderful way to get started, paring down your wardrobe and knowing, hey, look, I don't have to worry about whether I'm going to be chilly or not because I'm just going to always wear a jacket, and I'll take it off if I need it. That kind of thing. So I advocate for that. In fact, what I'm wearing today is a t-shirt. It's like a button-down t-shirt dress. I have these in like 9 colors, and because I live in Houston, it's hot as blazes here. This works for me. It allows me to look, professional, doing things like a podcast, but also I'm nice and cool and comfortable, and I only buy them in certain materials. And I think that's a really lovely way. And it is, I will say, the way men dress and have always dressed. Traditional men. Of course, this is not every single person in the world, but men generally, they're like, cool, I like this pant. I'll buy it in 9 colors in the same size. And then, oh, I like this polo shirt. And okay, I'll buy that one in 7 colors. And they buy at a sale and they buy their whole wardrobe and then they're just done. And when I was a young woman who hadn't really found my style yet, I looked at my husband doing this and I'm like, cheese and rice, that is so easy. Like, how do you get that easy? Now, granted, fit is much more complicated for women because our bodies are so different and the way that our fits are tailored is different as well. So it's not always that simple. And yet, I think the idea is really important for us.
Yeah, it's so funny because I travel a lot and I like to be I try to just travel. It could be a week and I'm trying to get into a carry-on, even though I never carry on because I hate carrying on the plane. Like for me, it's worth it waiting afterwards. But what I do is I have the same pant from Lily Pulitzer, which is technically part of their sports collection, but it's like tailored nicely in 5 colors. I have my winter colors and my summer colors. I have the same dressy leggings from Athleta in at least 5 colors. So when I find something that works, like I'm just like, okay, I need multiple colors. Which color do I feel like wearing on this trip? Because I'm not in an industry where I'm wearing dresses and dressing up so much anymore. So So I had to find the adaptation, but I love it. Yeah, people will be like, I love your pants. I'm like, thanks. I have them in at least 5 colors. And they're like, what? Where did you get them from? Because they're wrinkle free and it's easy, right? So yeah,
Oh,
gone are the days of complicating and bringing multiple suitcases.
for sure, for sure. I totally agree. And I have some version of your Athleta legging. It's since been discontinued, which makes me sad. And yet, that's another interesting point, which is that, we talk about cognitive distraction and simplifying, and yet women still, and we learned this very much in COVID, even as comfortable and cozy as we got in our jammies, zooming in every day, we still wanted to dress up sometimes and go out and put on
Yes.
heels and look nice and but put together. And I think that's another important component that sometimes gets lost when we talk about comfort. Comfort does not need to exclude being fashionable or expressive
Yes.
or put together. You don't have to look like you're wearing jammies to feel like you are very comfortable in what you're wearing. And I think that's a balance that every woman has to find, right? Every woman has their what makes them comfortable and what doesn't. And also, women also use wardrobe and shoes, especially, as a tool to help us feel excited. A new pair of earrings, a new pair of shoes, a new dress. We're like, God, I'm so excited to wear this. Like, I can't wait. That's real. There's nothing wrong with that either. It's just simply, about being mindful about which pieces you put on and what you need to be thinking about that day.
Yeah, I love it. I will share one thing I've done recently. I think I told you about this when we chatted. I read an article about breast health and how bad most bras are for your lymphatic system, etc., especially underwire. And I am not small chested, so I was like, no way I can do this. But I found some supportive, good bras that I like from Lululemon and other places. Now I'm paying attention to material, and unfortunately, a lot of Lululemon's has plastic base, and I'm trying to get away from that. But I did find sports bras that support me and look from the outside like a traditional bra. And I can't tell you how much more comfortable my life has gotten. Like, it's so amazing the difference it makes. Like, I just was reflecting on it when you were talking about cognitive distraction. I was like, I haven't even reflected on how much better my life has become since I made this change.
Yeah, and it deserves a celebration. It really does. And I'm by far not the only woman in the industry who is
Yeah.
doing this type of thing. There are women in the bra industry and all kinds of industries who are coming in and saying, look, our bras are designed by men, our shoes are designed by men, our
Yes.
clothing is designed by men, and men are not wearing it. They're also not subjected to the same criticism that we are. They're not experiencing the fabric, they're not experiencing the fit. How can we expect them to design better for us unless there's a woman in
Yeah.
the room who's being taken seriously? I think in my personal journey in footwear design, I find it increasingly surprising that women are laughed out of rooms when it comes to design of women's apparel. And that can be anything from a purse to a bra to luggage. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't matter what it is, but often our opinion is discounted as, oh, well, she just wants it to look sparkly and pretty. And like actually maybe, but top priority for us is actually comfort. The irony is that the only thing that is really marketed to us is comfort. If you notice and pay
Yeah.
attention to any advertisement for anything about women, it's always about comfort and function. And yet it is designed for our eyeballs to get excited about because I want that thing. Right. So they are on one side pandering to, hey, I want to make this attractive for a woman to want, but I need to get her logical side on board by telling her it's going to be comfortable and functional, whether it is or not. And
Yeah.
one of the things I'm really excited about to be a part of in this space is a part of a creator who says, look, sure, this can look great, and I want our shoes to look great. And they must be comfortable and they must
Yeah.
be built to a higher standard because women deserve it. Now, I'm not also saying I don't think that there's really one solution out there. And I love what you said about you found a set of Lululemon bras and you have found them from other manufacturers. And I think
Yes.
perhaps they serve different functions and that's wonderful. I'm for sure not proposing that my shoes are the end all be all of every shoe. However, what I am working towards is changing the dynamic around female footwear, especially heels, and
Mhm.
trying to turn the knob to get manufacturers to try a little harder on what we call the midsole piece, which is what really
Yeah.
supports us in the shoe, instead of literally paying lip service to us by putting 2 millimeters of a silly little foam that we can squeeze with our fingers, but realistically will not do anything to counteract the hundreds of pounds of force that we put on our shoes
Mhm.
as we walk forward in motion. And anyway, so that's really what my mission here is. And I think it's wonderful that I get to now be a part of a group of other women creators and inventors who are trying to do the same thing.
Yeah, I love it. You're disrupting the industry. No, it came to my attention. So at the same time, I read that article about just health of the lymphatic system, et cetera. And also, here's the interesting thing is it said that if you don't wear a bra, your breasts become perkier. And I'm like, no way. Sure enough, as soon as I started wearing real bras, it happened because the muscles weaken underneath if they're always supported, right? And,
Yeah.
I'm getting older. These are things that are a concern. And so I warned you, we get real here. But when you think about, that, and then I read an article about materials and, our skin is our largest organ. So we don't think about the materials of the clothing we're wearing. And if it's made of plastic, there's xenoestrogen. So of course we're all hormonally imbalanced, not to mention everything going into our food and water, right? So we
Right.
won't go down
Right.
a rabbit hole today, but there are so many health issues with the way the clothing, the shoe industry, just like our food industry operates in the United States today. So
Yeah.
I just love that you're shining a spotlight on this problem because to your point, when you talk about, that little bit of foam that supports all the poundage, think about the damage we're putting on our feet. And our feet have to carry us for our entire life. So we talked about cognitive health, but you're also an advocate for physical and mental health. So I love that you're making this
Mhm.
difference in the industry, and I'd love to hear other things you're working on.
Yes, absolutely. And I think our physical health, it goes even beyond our feet. Like as a cognitive neuroscientist, this was never my dream to jump into like designing shoes. I'm so happy to be here now, but I'm only here because of the journey that I was put on by starting to think about this cognitive
Mm-hmm.
issue, teaching anatomy and physiology, being a professor for a while in the Department of Orthotics and Prosthetics, where they're building custom orthoses to help people walk for
Wow.
different reasons on a clinical side. And I think just really being so aware of it's not just your foot, it's balance, it's muscle tone, it's joints that do the work of shock absorption
Mm-hmm.
when your shoes will not. If you're walking on a 3-inch stiletto on tile or brick, that shock gets absorbed by your joints. Like there's a reason we don't go running in clogs or stilettos. We don't
Yeah.
because we can actually feel it and it's painful because our joints are trying to do the work that our shoes should be doing. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not just our feet, it's our ankles and it's our knees and our hips and our lower back. And, it's easy to understand the pain point of I have a shoe that rubs a blister for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It is just as important, though, that your shoes are changing the way that you walk. And perhaps at the end of the day, your whole body is exhausted from counteracting or dealing with that step by step trauma. And that is something that we as an industry have got to do a better job of ameliorating. There are ways to do it. I think the frustrating part for me is that what I've done with our company is replaced the midsole, which is everything
Mm-hmm.
in between the outsole that touches the pavement and the insole that touches your foot. Everything in between is called the midsole, and it's a whole wide open wild west of you do whatever you want to do. 99% of manufacturers put steel and metal in there,
Wow.
and then they put a little bit of foam on the top so that when we squeeze it on the shelf it feels to us like it's going to be comfortable, and then inevitably we put it on, we walk 4 steps, we're like this will be comfortable, and then we buy it and then we walk for 4 days and we're like this is a nightmare, this must be me. It felt like comfortable. If this isn't comfortable, what is? I'm the problem. My feet are the issue. It's not. The issue is the physics of putting hundreds of pounds of force on 2 millimeters of foam is just not realistic. That's not going to do
Mm-hmm.
it. It's like saying that the that a tire, that 2 inches of rubber is going to protect you from a lightning strike. Like, no, that is not the reason why being in a car is more safe, right? It's not about that. It's about everything else. And that's what needs to be re-engineered and reimagined. What we have done in our company is replaced it with foam. And we have a proprietary density of foam that we use so that you have 2 vertical inches straight, just
Wow.
like a sneaker of foam, of shock absorption. So every step you take, every heel strike, every time your heel hits the ground, we're absorbing that shock for you. And so at the end of the day, or even the middle of the day, you can forget you're wearing your shoes. And that's one of the best compliments I get from my customers is, oh my God, Steffi, I put on your shoes and I completely forgot I was wearing them until I got a random compliment or something. And I mean, how nice, like what a gift that is not to have to deal with that trauma. So anyway, I think that what I've done so far is the very lowest hanging fruit, and I'm already innovating with new different types of foam, combinations of looking at the weight distribution and how do we counterbalance that with different densities of foam in different places in the wedge. Could we even perhaps return energy to the user so it's like a little spring in there?
Oh,
I
cool.
don't know this. I'm
Yeah.
treating this like a science project. Like, what can we
Yeah.
do? I'm working with some grad students at Rice in the mechanical engineering department to try to do some testing on this, and that gets me really excited and all fired up. And yet, it's all because I'm such an advocate for women having something better, and it just
Hmm.
grinds my gears that the industry has overlooked our overall health for their
Hmm.
own profit. And this is not new. That
Hmm.
I'm not the first person to bring this up at all. And yet now here I am in the middle of it, and
Yeah.
it is like my new thing.
Yeah. It's interesting. This was first brought to my attention just last year, and I'm an advocate for health and natural products. But I was at a conference, and Jamie Kern Lima was speaking, and she was sharing her story of It Cosmetics, which she sold, for a few $1 billion. But, there was a long journey to get there. I love how everyone focuses on the overnight, but she tells the story of how she, like, when she sold out on, it was so cute. She said, oh my gosh, why am I blinking? What's the online, you purchase, you go on QVC. Like, she finally got on
Hmm.
QVC after they had, rejected her 10,000 times. And they're like, if you don't sell out, we're never going to have you again. And she started her
Yeah.
skincare because her products, because she had rosacea and other skin issues, and most makeup didn't address that. And she wanted to show natural women, not models. That was her big thing. And so at the end of QVC, when they sold out, she was like, the women have spoken. And her husband was like, we're not going bankrupt. And I was like, I love that story because, often you don't hear that part of the journey, right?
Yeah.
But she talked about, basically, long story short, they got bought out, and I'm forgetting which big name brand bought them out, but they'd been in existence for 109 years, and she was the first female CEO of a makeup company. Like, that's crazy. So to your point, like, men are not just
Yeah.
controlling what we wear, but they're controlling what goes on our face and our skin as well.
For sure, because we're a huge market share. I mean, we
Yeah.
absolutely. If there is a product out there that is not being marketed to women, you're missing out.
Yeah. I
And I think
agree.
because of that, that is unfortunately, prevailing logic. For example,
Mm-hmm.
even running shoes are designed for men, and then we're like, ooh, we're missing out on the women. Let's just like pinch zoom this, and then we'll just sell it to women and put some pink on it or something, which is hugely derivative. But
Yeah.
it is it's the
Yeah.
situation, it's the reality, and wonderful to always have female founders in any space. I welcome more female founders in the shoe space. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Sarah Blakely recently
Mm-hmm.
has just dropped her line of shoes. And although I personally like mine better, I think it's wonderful to have more people out there trying to disrupt and think more thoughtfully because women, A, deserve more, and also we will pay for more. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we don't want to have to go shopping every 3 months to get the latest color and the latest
No.
thing. It's a huge industry, and there are people who love that, and I get it, and I 100% support it, and it doesn't have to be the only solution.
No, I agree. I love it. And, having that diversity of thought and serving other women is incredibly important. So, Steffi, obviously you had to walk away from your career as a neuroscientist, even though you're being a shoe scientist. So, I love that you're back in the labs and working. But I mean, what a career trajectory, right? So, most people listening, myself, are either entrepreneurs or on the journey, most of the women listening. And it's often shocking when you become an entrepreneur because many of the women I coach have been successful in other careers, kind of reach the epitome, and then decide, oh, I have a greater purpose, let me go do this thing. And they don't realize, wow, this is wholly different. So I'd love to pick your brain a little bit. What is the greatest joy you found since, doing this pivot and becoming an entrepreneur? Like, what is maybe something that surprised you or just that brought great joy to you?
It's an awesome question. And I know this is different for every founder and entrepreneur. And small business is hard, of course. It's very different from being in a corporate structure. And I think it's important to remember the things that we love about it because there are days that are really hard. And sometimes we have to dig
Yes.
deep to remember what we're doing. For me, it's always listening to, talking to, or engaging with women who are on the same page. Sometimes that's customers. Sometimes, I mean, I'm always delighted when we get just a review or just someone, often women will reach out and they'll say, Steffi, like, wow, I mean, I had no idea how comfortable shoes really could be. And I'm a little sad that it's taken this long for us to get here, but thank you for putting the shoe out there, etc. Wonderful. But I also love this, like talking with you about women's issues in general and bonding over the struggles that we have, the ways that we innovate ourselves. And every time I do, I learn something new and I'm reminded how resilient women are, how intelligent we are, how sensitive we are. And, I try not to get angry that we've been like overlooked for a long
Yeah.
time. And that's not, brand new, but it always encourages me that like, hey, I'm doing the right thing. I'm on the right side of this. I'm passionate about it clearly, and I'm doing what I'm best. I'm taking all the skills that I learned as a scientist, as a PhD neuroscientist, and I'm using it in a way that I think is doing much greater good than what I was doing as a neuroscientist in my particular field.
I love that last point you made. Then I want to reflect back on your bigger point. But you said you're using the skills you learned as a PhD neuroscientist, right? Because I'm a
Hmm.
huge proponent of leveraging the skills you have. So I talk to a lot of
For sure.
women. Like I have clients who are, attorneys at oil and gas companies, and then they have a side hustle and they're like, well, I hate to throw this whole career away. And it's like, you're not. What made you successful there is transferable into your business, right? And so I really like to encourage my clients and women I talk to think about what are you really good at? What are the skills and education that you've earned? And how do you transfer those into the new journey, but maybe serving a new client or a new purpose? That's your passion, right? And so I
Hmm.
love how you say you're using that skill set in your in your new business. And then I wanted to reflect back because my greatest joy is exactly yours. I did not intend only to work with women when I started on this journey in 2020. And I had a series of conversations with other amazing female entrepreneurs. I had been a financial advisor, a lawyer before that, so very male dominated industries. I'm sure you were in the same boat. I had a lot of male friends. I didn't have that many girlfriends. I usually loved their wives, and those were usually my girlfriends, right? And so going into this business and making the choice to work with women for certain reasons has been such a gift because I remember a mentor as I was coming in who also ran masterminds and group programs. She said, I was telling you something because I don't know, a lot of times in financial planning, like because people are talking to you about highly emotional topics, you have to put in strong boundaries to protect yourself a
Hmm.
little bit. Like it's great when we're in there, but it was like, I don't know, a little interesting. So I actually couldn't imagine being like best friends with my clients. Like I could imagine
Yeah.
caring about my clients and loving them because I did, but like there was always like that boundary in the financial industry. And so in this industry, I mean, a lot of my clients are now my best friends. And, we have rules like, hey, if you need me to coach you, DM me in the group. If you're texting me, we're friends, right? So, like, you keep
Yeah.
your boundaries to protect yourselves.
Yeah.
But, that's been an amazing, beautiful gift. And just having this podcast and getting to talk to other women and hear their journeys. So I love it. We have very similar stories on that arena. So my next question is, what has been the biggest challenge maybe that you came upon? Or because look, here's the bottom line. When you go into a new business, I successfully ran, grew, and sold another business. And still coming into this business, I was like, ooh, I forgot it was this hard to begin with, right? Because you have a team and you have everything rocking and rolling. So I think there's always things that take us off course because it's like, I didn't anticipate that. And it's impossible to anticipate what your new business is going to bring. So what is maybe a challenge that came up for you, or what's, I guess, your greatest challenge?
Yes, I mean, so many. And I'd say there are two major challenges, one at the beginning of my career here and one right now that I'm facing. The initial challenge was in building the shoe, and the challenge there was not, it wasn't really actually technically, because of my experience in orthotics and prosthetics. I knew about materials and shaping and molding,
Yeah.
etc. I knew it could be done, but going to factories and asking them to do this as a woman, I felt actually just like Sarah Blakely when she started Spanx, which was I got laughed out of the room. Everyone said, like, why? No, Steffi, we don't make shoes out of foam. Like, that's just for running shoes. We don't do that for heels. And, I said, okay. And I sort of used, again, my skills as a scientist to say, well, respectfully, I think we can, but let's try to move forward in this incremental way and see what we can do. And finally,
Right.
I got my very first sample in, and it was made out of plastic, which I didn't know because, of course, the midsole is always covered. So you don't know what's in there. And but I asked them to make it in my size. I went walking and I was like, look, I've been walking for 20 seconds and I can already tell you this is nothing different. What's inside? And they said, oh, it's just another heel that we pulled off the shelf. And I said, all due respect, if that's the best we can do, this is over because that's not an innovation for me. I want this made out of foam. And then they said, oh, so what you want is to develop a new midsole. You want to pour a new mold with a new material that is absorbent. And I said, yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I want. So on the one hand, I didn't have the language to communicate appropriately what I really wanted out of this.
Yep.
On the other hand, I had my skills as a professional and as a scientist of like, let's all get along and just try to talk around this issue to find a middle ground that works. And then then there was a whole nother issue, which was, oh, Steffi, you're like so cute. You're a little lady in Texas. Like you want to make a comfortable heel. You and literally everyone in the whole world, we don't make heels out of foam because then you'll fall down. And I said, well, I don't think that's right. Like, I think we can do it. And this is why. And I have like my Hokas and, all these huge athletic shoes that have a base of foam just all over the place. Anyway, so that was the biggest hurdle is convincing these manufacturers to take a risk on something that they thought industry wide was never done. And that was that hurdle. Now, my biggest hurdle after having done that, developed the product, we've innovated, we've added styles, etc. Now, my biggest hurdle is getting the product to market. And of course, our shoes are online. You can always order them, etc. But I mean, really out there. Like, how do we make this product available to any woman who wants it? And again, I want to be clear. I'm not advocating that my shoe is the answer to every single woman's problem, but every woman should have access to something like this at some point. And so I'm trying to balance getting the products that I have out to the market to women. Does that mean through stores, through more online advertising? What's the easiest way for me to get this out there? And then also balancing product development so that I have something for every woman if they want it. For example, when I very first started, I had my first one design, which was my 2-inch wedge heel made out of foam. Great. But not every woman loved an almond toe, or maybe they wanted a different color, or maybe they wanted a whatever. And so then we came out with a ballet flat, which was still also a foam, our Rome foam foundation, of little less than an inch. So you have a little bit of platform, a little bit of cushion, not totally flat because that can cause inflammation as well. And so now I'm trying to continue to build. We just came out with a little boot. We just came out with a sandal. And and so I want to widen the collection to be more available to women while also increasing the awareness of our brand and our mission and what we're doing so that more women can find us and give us, a chance.
Yeah, no, I love that. I am confident that you are going to succeed because I know you're on fire with purpose. And when women are on fire with purpose, that mama bear energy comes
I
out
love that.
and we get things done.
I
So,
love that phrase. I'm going to write that down. On fire with purpose.
yeah, it's one of my favorite. It happened when I moved to Nashville and I was starting this business and really, obviously we always have deeper purpose for our business, right? And what we're trying to do. And like half my furniture broke moving from Houston to here. Like there was a number of
Oh,
hiccups like in the move. I'm in the middle of selling a company, starting a company, and like my team was like, "How are you so calm every day? How are you not upset about this stuff?" And I was like, "Oh, it doesn't matter because we're doing X, Y, Z." And so that's when I was like, I have a spiritual coach, and he was like, "Yeah, because you're on purpose." So that's when I started saying "on fire with purpose" because it's true when you're focused and you're on fire with purpose, like the little hiccups don't matter. I mean, even half your furniture breaking on the way to Nashville, great excuse to get new
yeah,
furniture, right? So
for
I
sure,
love
for
it.
sure. Yeah,
Think,
always a silver lining.
yeah. So, Steffi, I don't think we touched on your story that you shared with us. We'll wrap up with this about how you realized what was going on with shoes. So, I know you were sharing with me you were always thinking about your shoes, always planning, oh, I have to walk far, I need to bring flats. And like, I totally get that. Like, I always had my flip flops or flats in my purse, and then I got in the office and I put the heels on and flipping. But one day you kind of had it, right? And you went into the lab and tell us about that story.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I one day, you're right. I had it. I was over it, and I went home that evening and I picked up three of my most comfortable heels, quote unquote, and I brought them into my lab and I sliced them in half with a bandsaw because I wanted to, I wanted to know what is inside here. What is it that I'm stepping on all day? And that's when I discovered that these three most comfortable heels were 90% plastic and metal and 10% some version of like little bits of foam here and there and padding that makes it feel squishy to your fingers. But very obvious to me, it wasn't enough to absorb the shock of a body weight, much less a body moving forward, which is even more force than just a standing body. And so it just became very clear that the physics of this did not add up. It's no wonder I couldn't walk 10,000 steps a day in these things. It wasn't just me. And that's something that I find all the time. Women always think it's just me. Everyone thought these were comfortable, but for example, the Cole Haan and Nike collaboration, a lot of women bring that up to me because they're like, oh, didn't they solve that problem? And I will say, well, did you have a pair? And they'll say, yeah, I did. They just weren't that, you know, they weren't that different. And I'll say, yeah, I know, because they didn't change the midsole. They didn't do that work. They did something else. And I have a whole post and a review about those shoes. I had a pair too. The point is, what women thought was, oh, it must be me. Because if Cole Haan and Nike can't figure this out, I'm the problem. You are not the problem. You are not the problem. They know that you want a comfortable heel. They did that on purpose. Sure, they did someone there probably did want to solve the problem, but they didn't really solve it.
Yeah, I
And
think a
that's
lot of
typical.
times, I mean, we see that a lot in corporate America. Someone has a great idea and then it gets watered down because the great idea
Yeah.
maybe isn't that profitable, right? And so there was
Yeah.
someone with good intent there and then it gets watered down. Or a lot of times corporations are just like, they're big barges out there. It takes a while to turn the ship. Whereas when you're a startup
For sure.
company like you're a speedboat, so you can pivot much faster. And I think that's the beauty of small businesses and startup businesses businesses and why we should continue to advocate for them, because I do think it's where most innovation and improvement in quality of our lives as, Americans and humans is going to come from. And I think this is incredibly important in today's world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, business-wise, that is a very successful model. I think Intuit is one of the first ones, was one of the first ones to do that by, kind of making tiny companies within them. And that's how QuickBooks came about, is just this little group within Intuit that decided, hey, this is a huge untapped market. It's super easy for us to put this software together. Why don't we just do it? And now that's enormous, right? I totally agree with you. And I'm not out here to put vitriol out there for these companies. I'm simply saying it's really more just, I want women to believe yourself, that if you buy a product and it's not working for you, it's not your fault. It's not necessarily the company's fault. It's just not the right product for you. And that's okay. You just need to keep looking.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. Well, at the Vixen Gathering, I am all about what we focus on is helping women embrace their feminine essence. We need our masculine side too, by the way. When we're in balance, it's best. But to your point, many of us came from masculine energies. A lot of Western thinking is very analytical, linear. And so I like to encourage women to get back in balance. So, Steffi, my question for you is, when do you feel most feminine? Like, what activity or time?
Gosh, that's a great question. I've never had that question before. When do I feel most feminine? I think in the morning when I'm doing my makeup and my face routine and I'm looking at myself in the mirror and I'm talking to myself. I try to sometimes, this is so silly, but I sometimes try to talk to myself the way I talk to my dog. So I'm super positive and I'm like, oh, look at that little messy hair. Like, it's just so cute, because
Love it.
and something about that routine really helps me to just get out of my head. And because for some reason our self-talk with women, not for some reason, that's a whole nother podcast, but
Yeah.
our self-talk isn't inherently positive. And so I try to, counteract that, and that in combination with putting creams on my face and just really attending to the way I feel, the way my skin feels. It's not really about looks, although I am at a vanity looking at myself with lights, but it's like a time to attend to me, and that makes me feel the most feminine.
Take care of yourself, and you're also receiving that from yourself at that time too, which is a feminine essence as well. So I love that. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. We actually this week in the Vixen Founders Collective did a session on psychology mastery, and everyone adopted affirmations based on where they were going into a negative mindset to start every morning. So I love that. I love that you say I talk to myself the way I talk to my dog, because I use that a lot of times. I'm like, hey, catch your negative self-talk and think, if someone were talking to my best friend or my daughter or my mother this way, how would I react, right? And it makes you very self-aware of, oh my goodness, I wouldn't talk to anyone else this way, and yet I
Yeah.
talk to myself this way. So a
Yeah.
lot of times I ask women, think about how you talk to your daughter or your mother or your best friend. So I love the dog because everybody's happy around their dog, right?
Yeah, everybody's happy and it's like, oh, look at that little mosquito bite you just got. Oh no. Like there's just this there's just absolutely no blame at all. It's just the happiest, most delightful thing to say. Everything is in that lens. Anyway, so that helps me to kind of lift myself up in the morning.
That's beautiful. I love it. So what color is your feminine essence? If you had to put a color to your feminine energy, what would it be?
I'm green. Green is my favorite color, always has been. Yep.
Love it.
I'm a
Love
greenie.
it. Well, this color is my favorite color that I have on, like a
It
purpley
looks great
fuchsia.
on
And
you. Yeah.
thank you. And I'm super excited because you shared with me that you have new pink shoes for the fall. So I'm totally hopping
Yep.
off and going to check them out. If you want to check out Steffie's shoes as well, check out getawaysticks.com. And I think you guys are about to go on a new journey. And so we will update that as we go. But definitely find all of Steffie's information is in the show notes. You can find her there. You can find the company there. And she's so generous generously offered a Vixen 15, which is a 15% off discount. So again, this is all in the show notes, the discount code, where to find her amazing shoes. And I am going to be the first one to use that code. Thank you very much, Steffie. I'm going to look for my new pink shoes. So thank you. Anything else you'd like to tell our audience about how they could further connect with you or the best way to find you?
I'd say, first of all, definitely subscribe to our email list because that's where we are going to be announcing some big changes happening. And you can always contact me. I love to hear from customers. I love to hear feedback. And yeah, I'm very open and I have the time right now. And so, do it. Just reach out. I'd love to hear from you.
I love that. Thank you so much. What's your final message to all the amazing women out there listening?
Just do it. Just do it. Just start. You can't plan it away. Just start and it'll fall into place.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. And for me, as I always say, the world needs more love. So today we're talking about our physical bodies. We talked about our cognitive, physical, and mental health. So this week, just reflect which part of you needs the most love and how can you give it to yourself. As always, thank you for joining us. And again, in the show notes, we have all of Steffie's information. If you are not getting the show notes, you simply go to vixengathering.com/podcast. If you subscribe, they will all be delivered to your inbox. All these amazing resources and how to stay in touch with our awesome guest. Have a fantastic day, everyone. Go ahead, just do it. And also think about how you can love yourself more this week. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, April.
Bye, Steffie. Thank you. Thanks again for listening to the podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to hit subscribe so future episodes are automatically downloaded directly to your device. And if you want access to today's show notes, including links to all the resources we mentioned, visit vixengathering.com/podcast. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you next week for another episode of The Vixen Voice.